No, welcome to another Let's Talk Some Bad Batch. This time it is the 13th episode of Season 2, also known as Pabu. So if you haven't seen it yet, don't want anything ruined, really good time to click away. Alright, so once again, let's begin with your ever so brief review of this episode.
It seems like a kind of in-between episode, just like a final check-in with the Bad Batch before all hell breaks loose to see, okay, they're separating from Cid, she's angry. Here's the possibility of where they could end up. This is where they could live the rest of their lives out. They could have a future here. And we're getting to see all that, to see the future that they could have. A community where they could be useful and have a future and whatever.
Useful and more than just killing people.
Yeah.
And doing odd missions.
Before
Sorry to interrupt, but yeah.
the worst should happen.
Yeah. That was kind of what it was.
Yeah, so I think we're about to see them get torn away from the future that they could have.
No, I think you just summed up the episode pretty well.
Cool.
All right, we're done here. Well, thanks. Now let's move on to the comments.
First comment comes from The Prodigal Knight. I got the sense that this was the calm before the storm episode before they hop back into the good stuff to cap the season off. It was too good to be true.
Yeah, the entire episode gets framed by the Cid threat at the beginning. So even if you aren't remembering that, oh, there are other bad things out there in the galaxy likely to happen to them, or you forget about Crosshair and Mount Tantus and all of that, the episode does. I almost wish it didn't remind you about the Cid thing. Just let us think, yeah, this is the happy ending, despite there being 3 episodes to go.
Well, because by the end of the next episode, we need Omega to get kidnapped so we can have a two-parter finishing us all off, right?
That's what it feels like is going to happen. Omega kidnapped, taken to Mount Tantus. Bad Batch has to figure out where she is. They go there, find Crosshair as well. I mean, it seems pretty straightforward.
It feels right.
Yeah, I mean, I hope there's some twists. There's probably going to be some twists. Probably won't be that straightforward. But yeah, I think this was just, hey, look, everything could be great in theory, but it's not going to be.
It's just a little bit sad, a little bittersweet.
It is that's what it's supposed to be. That's the whole, for better or worse, like it or not, that's the point of the episode, to make you go, oh, well, that sucks. They were happy for a week, a month, a year, however long they're going to be there.
Right. We know that they said they would at least be there for a while because they were going to help them rebuild.
Yeah.
Almost like they really are settling down.
I think that's what they're implying. They're going to stay. But they're not going to be allowed to stay because Empire.
No, you know that Cid planted a tracking device on that ship of some sort, right? She has to have.
Maybe.
I don't know, but then again, why didn't she bring it up when their ship was stolen?
Well, maybe because she didn't care. But also at the same time, she hasn't heard from them in like a couple rotations or 13 rotations, whatever she said.
20 or something.
Yeah, was it 20? Well, it's been a while, so you'd think she'd already be kind of tracking them and seeing where they were going and what they were up to. I don't know. Hard to know how she's going to find them, because we know it won't be through Fee, because Fee said she'd never taken her here.
Cid, yeah, she wouldn't take Cid.
I don't trust Cid enough to take her here.
Gee, I wonder why.
Can't imagine.
All right, well, let's move on to the next comment from Jim Rhett. I think this episode contrasts nicely with last week's Crosshair episode. Here, the Bad Batch are welcomed into a community, finally finding a place they can settle down and belong. Meanwhile, Crosshair is alone and abused by Nolan and the other imps in power, who are ready to discard him and other clones when they serve their purpose. Even the contrast between the desolate frozen wastes and the warm tropical paradise.
Yeah, it was like, look what happens to Crosshair. Follows the Empire, don't care about him, ends up almost dying in like I said, a desolate frozen wasteland. And here's the Bad Batch deciding to, follow their heart, I guess you could say. Raise Omega and look for a safe spot, and they find paradise.
It's actually really cool to be able to contrast these 2 episodes back to back.
Yeah.
Because they're so different in tone and overall what they're showing the future for these people.
This is the one time the total tonal difference works extremely well. Because you feel it from last week's, that oppression that you feel upon, on Crosshair's shoulder the entire time, to this, where you feel like this liberation, like this, to, breathe the deep air and enjoy it, and this is a good life.
Yeah.
Goes from one to the other, and it works now, instead of how it usually feels.
Next comment is from Cedric Granger. It's nice to have balance. A super cold, dark, and intense episode, followed by a lighter one. I cheer for these characters and want them to have a happy life, and I'm glad that humanity and heart is within the show in episodes like these. Does it hit the same as the Crosshair episode last week? No. But does this episode make me smile a lot and take in the atmosphere of the beautiful side of Star Wars? Yes. I'm glad to see you liked this episode too and didn't just see it as a waste of time. This comment goes along with Nightmare, On the surface, this was for the most part just a feel-good episode, but in the back, there always was a looming threat. Just felt too good to be true. There's no way the next episode starts with the Bad Batch just being on another planet, so I'm curious what this experience means for their future.
Yeah, I'm curious how the Empire finds them. If the Empire comes to the island and kind of blows it up, and it's like, oh, geez, now we feel bad, and now we know we can't just run and hide, because if they find us, the people we're hiding with are going to pay the price.
Yeah, they need to have these consequences of what happens when they settle down.
Yeah.
Which is sad, but...
It is sad. I mean, it could be. We don't know what's going to happen. They might just sneak in and take Omega and be on their merry way. I doubt it, but...
The Empire's not always a sneaking type.
No, they usually just come in with brute force. Blunt force trauma right to the island.
They do have all those clone commandos.
They do have a lot of clone commandos.
A lot of them.
A lot of them, yeah.
Bad Batch versus Delta Squad.
That would be that seems like a pay-per event kind of thing, or a pay-per-view event. Gotta pay extra to get that.
Oh my god. It's just, we know it's coming, we know the shoe's going to drop, we're just not exactly sure how.
Yeah, that's the cool part. That's what I like. This episode, it makes you care about the island too, and these people, and now you're like, well, we know something's gonna go wrong.
It's a community with so much heart that we're all brought together because of, being refugees and having such a rough time, and this is their sanctuary, this is their peace, and the Bad Batch comes and everything's going to get thrown out the window.
Yeah.
Not really their fault, but...
Yeah, but no, it was a good, nice, calm episode. Like I said, contrast perfectly with last week. It felt right to me. I get the people who didn't like it, too boring, too slow, too filler, whatever you want to call it. You didn't need to set up the whole action-packed finale and all that, but I think if you're going to do it, this does it perfectly, and I don't feel like it was a waste of time. I feel like this is exactly what I wanted to see before everything goes down.
Next comment from Rye Bread. This hits the brakes too hard for me after last week's episode. I'm really starting to resent the main team because I feel the show is at its best when they're not on screen.
Yeah, like I was just saying, I get not enjoying this. It is not needed. You could have gone straight to the finale, if you will. And it does. I can certainly get it. It does feel like this is like, whoa, this is just, what is this episode? It's so different from anything else. Even the random treasure hunting episodes are not like, it's a different type of different episode, you could say.
Right. You can see that they're setting up stuff, but sometimes they do feel like they take a little long to set up.
They're a little obvious with things, and I get it. It is a show more for, the younger audiences. That's at least what they say. So a lot of the times things feel very redundant, and you're like, well, I don't need that reiterated constantly, or I don't need that shown constantly. I get it. We've done this before. I think that's one of the, especially if you're an adult, you're a more sophisticated viewer than your average 7-year-old who might be watching this, right? Not that 7-year-olds can't maybe get something good out of this, but you expect it to just be a little more streamlined. It feels redundant. It feels very deliberate at times, and I think they're never going to take that out of the show. So you kind of got to get used to it, I guess. Yeah. Or not watch it, I suppose.
Those are the options, aren't they?
Yeah. I mean, I think for what it is, for the idea that they do want to, again, target this towards younger audiences, I think they do a very good job most of the time. Doesn't mean they can't do a few less of the treasure hunting and a few more, story arcs and all that. I think kids like that too. Kids loved the Clone Wars, so I don't know. It's kind of a give and take thing.
All right, the next comment comes from Linus. I really liked this episode. The city was beautiful, and it was refreshing to see a tsunami in Star Wars. However, about Omega's kill at the beginning, I really wish they showed the psychological repercussions of her killing someone, because I took notice about how she killed that guy, but it was never addressed afterwards. Oh, I agree with this. She shot somebody with that bow of hers almost point blank. She was right there. Yeah. But there's no repercussions. Just he was a bad guy and she shot him. They've never said anything about, is that weapon something that can shoot at stun?
It stuns. It always stuns. Come on.
I know, but they need to make sure we all know that. They've never really said that, so it's...
It is something that should be addressed because that's huge, right? I mean, I understand, self-defense, and you have to sometimes, in a show like Star Wars, you're going to see people killing each other. That's just par for the course. Yeah. However, I think it plays into the whole, like, oh, she's becoming a soldier, she's learning. Even the Bad Batch don't think about the fact that, oh, we have a 10, 12-year-old girl killing people. 12, probably about 12 or 13, I don't know if we have her exact age, but we can kind of extrapolate based on cloning time periods and when the project started. So probably like 12. and she's just shooting people.
Yeah, it's a little rough.
Yeah, and I know you could say, well, in Clone Wars we have Ahsoka being, 14, going around killing people too, and that never gets addressed. But I think it's more interesting here because as a Jedi, she has no doubt been trained her entire life about what it means to take a life, that it's a last resort, even though they don't always treat it as a last resort. Mm-hmm. And here it's just like, oh yeah, she's a soldier. She kills people. That's what they do.
That's what soldiers do.
But part of it bugs me that they don't address it, and part of me is like, yeah, they wouldn't address it because they don't realize it. They don't see that they were trained to be soldiers.
But perhaps Fee should have realized it.
I agree. And she does touch on it, but she doesn't really go, she's just shooting people out there.
No, she just like, hey, she's raised as a soldier and she's a kid, too.
Yeah.
Next comment is from Rick J. I love that even in a technologically advanced galaxy, that nature is still a force to be reckoned with. It's an interesting juxtaposition.
It was interesting to see like a natural disaster.
Yeah, because you just figure their technology is so advanced that they've pretty much eliminated the threat from it.
Yeah. Raise the giant seawall.
Right. You just figure that, they would have plenty of early warning systems, that they could shield these cities. I mean...
Yeah. The Gungans could do it.
Kaminoans lived on a water planet that seemed to be constantly under storms and stuff, too.
Yeah. Yeah, it seems like the technology exists in the galaxy to, maybe shield yourself from giant tidal wave. But...
Or at least have some sort of early warning system.
They did have a warning system. They did have a horn that went off.
It didn't go off till after Hunter and the monkeys all realized, though.
Well, that's Hunter's... That's his ability, right? He's got to do something every now and then.
Every now and again, he looks around and goes,
Picks up some dirt and goes, I think a couple hobbits went this way.
Oh, boy.
But no, I seen some people complaining, oh, Bad Batch shows up and 10 minutes later there's some earthquakes and a tsunami. Okay, fair enough. But look, you're always going to get conveniences in shows like this. It's hard to... I mean, do you want them staying for like 10 episodes and we'll just draw it out and like months later we see the thing happen? I mean, you could have implied that, right? They could have showed up, got comfortable, and a week later it happened instead of like the same day, but whatever.
Literally the day they showed up. Yeah.
It was like 10 minutes later, like, oh, there's an earthquake. Oh, timing.
The next comment is from Justin's Adventures. Though I see where it's coming from, Fee and Tech displaying some romance seems a little forced. They seem like very different types of people, though that may be the point. Also, I noticed what you did there with the two stomachs.
I made a comment about Omega shooting somebody. Maybe he didn't die because he had two stomachs.
Anyway.
Anyway. No, I mean, opposites attract, right? That's what they say anyway.
That is what they say. Not to mention, she's been flirting with him pretty hardcore.
Hey,
maybe if he just gets to relax a second, he can appreciate it.
That's the whole point. Like, he needs to calm down. He needs to stop. We even see, beginning of the episode, what is he doing? Like, he's waiting, but he can't just sit there and wait and see if the team needs him for a pickup. He's playing a game against himself because I'm the only opponent that, gives me a challenge.
And maybe just her piratey scoundrel ways challenge him in a way that he's interested in.
Exactly. And he even says at the end of the episode, maybe we should stay and help. There's no tactical advantage. There's no analytical reason for them to stay and help them rebuild. He wants to stay.
Aw, what the brain is developing a heart.
Well, he talks about in the episode where they, he gets trapped with Omega after the water slide thing. How he feels. He has emotions. He just doesn't express them the same way. I'm sure there's a lot of people out there who really like Tech, who connect with his inability to, just let things drop and to look at things, to enjoy a sunset. They can't express their emotions very. A lot of people have trouble with that. That's human nature.
And Fee does this for him. She has him slow down and smell the roses and appreciate things that he normally wouldn't look at. She's opening up his world, and maybe he sees a lot of value in that and a lot of care that she's taking the time to do that with him.
Exactly. I get that they seem like the odd couple, and you're like, well, what would these, long term, what does this relationship look like? But I don't think that's what they want you to think. They want you to think short term how they're going to be good for each other.
But as for it feeling forced, I can get that too, because we've had, 2 episodes with the two of them together, so they have to move quickly.
Yeah, well, that's what I was kind of saying before. Like, things in the show are oftentimes going to be deliberate, or they're going to be forced. You can't complain that the episodes are kind of slow-paced and that, and then be upset that it isn't set up well.
Did we want an episode of their love story?
No.
So, unfortunately, we're going to get this one that feels a little bit forced because we didn't get the time to set it up.
Touche. Good point. That's exactly right.
I think we would have gotten a lot of flack for the...
Yeah, if next week it's just a Fee Tech episode, they go on a little boat trip to an island and have a picnic for 30 minutes, I think people are going to be furious.
Right.
And yet it would be great development for the two, wouldn't it?
And yet everyone's going to be yelling filler, and it will be like
Yeah, it would
filler
be filler,
because
yeah.
I'd rather have it feel a little forced because they had to
Yes.
rush into it than be like, oh, wait, you're really going to slow this down for us, aren't you?
Are they coming for Omega? No, it's just a picnic. Okay.
It's the love boat. Next comment is from Chup Smith. Wrecker is Grog, although I hope that, like Grog, he gets a few episodes to show some kind of character growth eventually. Oh, I agree with this.
Grog
he
is
Grog
from-
for Vox Machina.
Yes. He's the brute barbarian type guy in that show.
But they did a lot of character
They
development with
do
him in season
amazing.
2. And
Yeah.
it's really good.
That is like the perfect example of what you do with the quote unquote big dumb strong guy. They do a great job with him.
They do a great job with him. Wrecker still is just that big dumb.
I want to eat. That's the best they could come up with in Paradise for Wrecker.
What does everyone get? Well,
I get a
Hunter gets to
buffet.
be a father, and
Tech gets a girlfriend.
Tech gets a girlfriend.
Omega gets
friends and a
in real
normal
life.
life. Wrecker's gonna be full every day.
Yes.
No, he needs something more. He doesn't have a personality aside from I like explosives and I like to eat.
Oh, you do that too well.
Season 1, I was my head hurts.
Yeah, that was the whole, that's what the best they could come up with. He's going to be the one who has the shit malfunction, so we could have like a horror episode of him running around wanting to kill everybody. Mm-hmm. I mean, I like Wrecker. I don't dislike him, but
I
he
want
is.
to see more of Wrecker than just something so surface level.
Yeah, he is so one dimensional. You turn him sideways, he's not even there anymore. It's bad.
He's been Omega's kid friend.
They did a little bit with the buddy, like the fun uncle kind of thing last season. That just completely got dropped.
They had to go
this
get their
season.
Mantel mix together.
Yeah, they've done nothing with that this season. Kind of surprised.
Yeah, they just pick and choose who they're going to leave by the wayside. Yeah. This season, it's Wrecker. Last season was Tech and Echo.
Yeah, they got swapped out. They can't get them all in one season, I guess. I don't know.
Last comment is from Patrice Carbonneau. Felt like this week in Star Wars was influenced by Andor. Not so obvious in Bad Batch, but still a slow burn episode that I felt had hidden depth.
Yes and no. I mean, Andor's a whole different animal still.
It still is, yes.
Yeah, I mean, we've talked a little bit today about what the Bad Batch show is. It's kind of deliberate. It'll be slow pace at times. It's kind of forces things. It's in your face. And I think they're trying to figure out with these shows still. And mind you, Clone Wars was a whole different beast because it was anthology and you were doing arcs with different characters, though you had a lot of the same characters. Anyway, I think they're trying to find out what is this perfect blend for Star Wars. Because you do. Shows today are a lot more complex than they were even 10 years ago. People like good character studies now, whereas back then either they didn't like them or they just weren't around. So I think they're trying to negotiate Star Wars through the modern entertainment industry, what people want today.
Right, and it's been a challenge for them.
Yeah, I think Andor was... I love Andor, but I can certainly see why people thought that was to the extreme end of, okay, you went really character study and in-depth and complex. It's not that it's totally complex, but the characters are complex. And here's Bad Batch on the other side. Okay, you kind of have these fun episodes every week. You're kind of missing the overall story at times or just taking us off track. Anyway, before I keep rambling and making no sense, I just think they're trying to find their footing. And you're going to get different shows with different feels, but certainly Andor was an example of that Star Wars can get extremely, in-depth and slow down and be a great character study. So yeah, I think Andor, it'll be interesting to see what Andor has influence-wise going forward on Star Wars. How much they think people like that or how much they think people didn't like that and just don't want that in Star Wars. But yeah, it's got to be a blend. You got to be a blend, and each show is going to be a little bit different. That's what I'm saying, I think.
Mm-hmm. And with a show like Bad Batch, they can never go fully Andor because they are still marketing this for a younger audience as well.
But I mean, if you took some of the more, complexity or nuance of Andor and you threw it in Bad Batch, you might have younger audiences missing it to some degree. Mm-hmm. All right, well, I think that's going to be all we got for this time. So now it's your turn to take to the comments below and tell us what you thought of this week's episode of The Bad Batch. Did you love it? Did you hate it? Too slow? Or what? Whatever the case may be, leave your comments below. Let's talk some Star Wars. And until next time, thanks for watching.